Okay, we are live. Good morning, everybody. 9 o'clock Monday morning. It's pretty wet and miserable out there. So this is the first of my Monday 5 lives. If you missed my post late last week, I put up a little video explaining what this was going to be about. Basically, it's going to be me coming on here every Monday at 9 o'clock, talking about all things related to health and well-being. And what I would really like is if this becomes something that's quite interactive. So if you've got any questions, if you've got any topics in the field of health and well-being that you would like me to talk about or address, then please let me know. I would really like this to be valuable for you. And so if you've got anything that you want me to talk about, you can either comment or send me a message, and I'll try and cover those topics. So in the video on Thursday, I mentioned that it's exactly 12 weeks till Christmas, and I talked about how much I love a 12-week time frame because it's long enough that you can achieve something really significant in that time, but it's not so long that it feels like so far into the distance. So I asked you to think about a goal that you would like to achieve between now and Christmas, which is that 12-week time frame. And I also mentioned that today we are going to talk about the one thing that you absolutely must do to achieve your goals. And I believe that when people don't do this thing, they are more likely to fail or not achieve the goal that they set out to do. So the one thing that you absolutely must do before you embark on any goal is to identify your why. Why are you going to do this? Why do you want to achieve this goal? And what is your driving force behind the goal? The driving force has to be something that will create a lot of pain for you if you don't follow through. Now, if any of you follow Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins, the self-help guru, he always talks about the fact that humans will do more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. So you need to find out your reason or your driving force that is going to create a lot of pain for you if you don't follow through. So let me give you an example. Coming up 4 years ago, I was in the middle of a pretty bad time with my health. And I decided I was going to follow a plant-based diet because I'd read all the evidence and I was confident that that was something that was going to help me heal. Now, my why for turning to this plant-based diet was because I was very, very, very unwell and I was desperate to be healthy again. So sickness was my pain point, and at that point I would have done anything to move away from that pain of being sick. If you don't identify what your why is, it's very likely that you are going to stumble at the very first hurdle. And you will end up sabotaging yourself because your driving force just isn't strong enough. So, for example, going back to my, when I went to a plant-based diet, I had lots of stumbling blocks that could potentially have derailed me. One of them was that at that time, none of my family was eating anything plant-based. So I was surrounded by a lot of other food in the house, and it would have been very easy for me to reach for that food, especially because I was really sick and I didn't have a lot of energy, I didn't have a lot of motivation. It would have been very easy for me to just, reach for the biscuits or whatever it was. So that was a potential stumbling block. Another one was because I was so sick, I wasn't going out of the house. I was barely leaving the house, and I certainly wasn't going to the supermarket if I could help it, because I honestly looked like a mess and I didn't want to be seen by people. So it was actually often the fact that I had run out of ingredients to cook these plant-based meals. I had to, that was a stumbling block because I had to, I had to make myself go to the supermarket because the thought of remaining sick and not healing was more painful than going to the supermarket. So instead of, going for the, I guess you call it the pleasure side of it, of not having to go to the supermarket. I made myself go because I wanted to avoid the pain of being sick, and I knew that I had to go and get the food that was going to make me better. And then there were just days that I felt really depressed and defeated. And again, it would have just been really easy to just reach for whatever was around and not cook those healthy meals. So in that situation, I was moving, I was more keen to avoid the pain than I was to gain the pleasure of not being strict, if that makes sense. So let's talk about another example. Say your goal before now and Christmas is to lose 10 kilos, which is a very achievable goal. If you don't know your why or your driving force behind that decision, you are going to really struggle to get through those challenging moments, because it's very, very easy to forget your why in moments of temptation. So let's give an example. We know that leading into the summer season, you know, there's a lot of social events, there's workplace Christmas events, there's the longer evenings with barbecues and gatherings of friends and family. And, you know, those situations are usually, they revolve around food and alcohol. Okay, and when you're in that moment, when you're in the moment of enjoying yourself and having a laugh, and, you know, you might have had a couple of glasses of wine, you forget what your driving force is because you're not thinking about it. And all of a sudden, oops-a-daisy, I was only supposed to have 2 glasses of wine. Now I've had 4 glasses of wine, and, you know, my willpower has completely gone out the window, and I've just eaten all this stuff that I didn't want to eat. So find out what your driving force is, and it has to be strong, and it has to be something that is going to cause you a lot of pain if you don't follow through. And there's a little strategy that I recommend for you to remind yourself of your why, okay? Write it down, find a little piece of paper like the size of a business card, write down your goal, write down your why or your driving force, and write down the consequences of not following through, okay? So your goal, your why, and your consequences of not following through. You need to put a copy of these 3 things everywhere you go. So the first one is on the fridge. Okay, so this is related to a weight loss goal. On the fridge, in the pantry, put it in your wallet so that when you're out and about and you're meeting a friend for a coffee and you are confronted with a display cabinet full of muffins and scones, you are able to pull out your little piece of paper and just give yourself a little reminder. Because remember, in moments of temptation, that is when you will stumble, and that is when you will sabotage yourself, and you have to have that reminder on you at all times. Put it at your workplace, hang it on your pin board by your desk, so that when you have those workplace morning teas and, you know, you've got all these goodies in front of you, you read your little goal and you say, no, it's going to be more painful for me to not achieve this goal than it is to eat the muffins. Yeah, so fridge, pantry, car, put it in your car, in your wallet, and on your desk somewhere. Okay, so for example, you know, let's talk about the 10 kg goal. Your goal would be lose 10 kilos. Your why would be, I want to be a healthy role model for my kids. And the consequence of not following through is that my kids grow up with a poor role model and they repeat the same mistakes that I did. That's an example. Another example is a goal. I want to get rid of my anxiety. And my why is because I don't want to be burdened by anxiety all the time. It's just making my life miserable. The consequence of not following through is that I continue to be burdened by anxiety and I live in fear, okay? So those are just examples of your goals and your why and the consequence of not following through. If you find yourself being somebody who sets goals and then you don't follow through, you have to go back and question why that is happening. And my belief is that it's because your why is not strong enough. The pain of not following through is not strong enough. So let's go back to that 10 kilo example, wanting to lose 10 kilos before Christmas. let's say that your why is, or you think your why is, I want to lose 10 kilos because I want to feel better in my clothes. If you're somebody who sets those goals and then you lose 2 or 3 kilos and then you stumble and then you're back to square one, you've got to think, is my why strong enough? Is it the driving force behind, is it my real driving force behind why I want to achieve this goal? So feeling better in your clothes, yeah, that's a great goal, but it might not be enough to make you avoid or make you avoid those pleasurable situations. So for example, at work when you've got all the goodies, you might think, oh yeah, I want to feel better in my clothes, but oh, that muffin looks really good. Okay, so the muffin ends up winning. Think deeper about what your why is, and it might not really be that you want to feel better in your clothes. It might be, again going back to what we talked about before, it might be that you want to be a better role model for your kids. And so every time you're confronted with that food, you go, no, the pain of me not following through and not being a good role model for my children is stronger than the pleasure that I will get from eating this muffin. Okay, and that's where you've got to drill down and really find your motivation and your reasons, your real reasons, not the reasons that you think it might be. You've got to get down and go, okay, if I don't do it, this is the consequence, and this is going to be really, really painful for me. So whatever your goal is, think about the goal, think about your driving force or your why, and then think about the consequences if you don't follow through. And you don't have to come up, when you think about a goal, you don't have to be able to identify all this right then and there. You know, you can take your time and sit with it for a bit. Yeah, so I hope that's been helpful this morning. I can see that there are a few of you watching. I've got a question here, I think. Oh, spin your camera around. You are sideways. Thank you, Beth. Awesome. I just did the whole thing sideways. Well, I will know for next time. All right, so that's it for today. I'll be back here next week, Monday, 9 o'clock. If there's anything you want me to talk about, please let me know. Otherwise, have a great day, everyone, and we will see you next week. Okay, see ya.